My ex-wife cheated on me with my brother, especially since both families backed them, until I revealed a plan none of them ever saw coming. My ex-wife, Julie, a 34-year-old woman, and I were married for 8 years before everything fell apart. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and had what I thought was a solid, happy marriage. Julie was charming, dependable, and good-looking. The type of person people would look at and think, wow, he's lucky. We shared common goals, she supported my career, and everything felt right. I thought we had something solid, and I never imagined in a million years how wrong I was. Growing up, I was always the responsible one in my family. My parents praised me for being the dependable, mature son who would make a good husband one day. On the other hand, my younger brother Luke was the golden child. He was handsome, charismatic, and the life of the party. My parents adored him, and everyone who met him was instantly charmed. I didn't think much of it because he was my brother, and I loved him. Sure, my parents always seemed to focus on him, but I brushed it off as typical family dynamics. I thought their view of him as the perfect son was just how they saw him. Looking back, maybe I should have seen the warning signs. Luke was around us often because our families were close, and he and Julie got along well, too well as it turned out. One day, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. The house was quiet, and I noticed one of Luke's bags in the living room. At first, I thought he must have just come over to visit, but as I walked down the hallway, I heard them talking in our bedroom. My heart sank, but I told myself to calm down and not jump to conclusions. When I opened the door and saw them, it was like my entire world crumbled around me. I'll never forget the shock on their faces when they saw me standing there. It felt like I was stuck in a nightmare. I barely remember the confrontation. I think I was too shocked to process it all in real time. I left the house that day with whatever I could grab and didn't look back. That should have been the worst of it, but somehow, what happened afterward hurt even more. When I reached out to my parents, hoping they'd support me through the worst moments of my life, I was met with absolutely no reaction. Instead of comfort, they gave me a patronizing speech about how marriages are complicated and how maybe I had pushed Julie away. They even suggested that Luke was doing her a favor by showing her real love. My own family acted like I was the one who had messed up, like I'd somehow driven Julie into my brother's arms. In the days that followed, things only got worse. Julie's parents, whom I'd grown close to over the years, took her side without question. They were completely charmed by Luke, treating him like the perfect addition to the family. I tried reaching out a few more times, but eventually, I got the message loud and clear. I was done. I was completely alone. Both families stood firmly behind Julie and Luke. I was disposable to them, easily replaced by someone they thought was better suited for the role of husband and son-in-law. The divorce process was quick and brutally cold. I couldn't bear to keep anything that reminded me of Julie or the life we'd shared, so I left most of it behind. I moved into a tiny apartment, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life with no support. I lost nearly everyone in my social circle because, thanks to my family's influence and connections, Julie and Luke managed to paint me as the bitter, unstable one, while Luke was the one who saved Julie from me. But somehow, I got through it. I threw myself into work and slowly started meeting new people. People who didn't know about the mess that had become my life. I found new friends, a couple of kind neighbors, and over time, I began to rebuild. I'd always thought I needed my family to feel whole, but I learned I could be okay on my own. I found a strength and independence I didn't know I had, and even though it was incredibly hard, I was proud of myself for getting through it. Just as I was starting to find peace, things took a wild turn. Out of nowhere, my phone started blowing up with calls and messages from my parents and Julie's family. At first, I ignored them, thinking it was some kind of sick joke or maybe someone checking in because they felt guilty. But the calls kept coming, so I finally listened to one of the voicemails. What I heard left me absolutely floored. Luke had left Julie. He'd apparently met another woman who had caught his eye and walked out on Julie without so much as a goodbye. Now, with Julie left heartbroken, both of our families were scrambling to put the pieces back together. And who did they think should fill the spot Luke had left? Me, of course. They actually thought I should go back to Julie and take my place as the rightful husband. The messages were full of emotional manipulation disguised as concern. At first, they were begging me to come back and forgive them, but then their texts started sounding insane. They kept saying it was my duty as a man to give Julie a second chance, that forgiveness would show how strong I was. My dad even said it was a chance to prove my worth as a son, as if I hadn't already spent years bending over backward for this family that tossed me aside. Julie's family chimed in too, saying she was lost without me and that I should come back to keep the family together. It was as if my own pain and betrayal didn't matter. All they cared about was keeping up appearances. They acted like I should somehow forget that they'd all abandoned me. I've been so angry because of this. After everything I'd gone through, losing my family, my wife, my social circle, these people thought they could just call me back as if I owed them something, as if I hadn't been discarded and replaced like an old piece of furniture. The worst part was they acted like I should be grateful for the chance to come back. For a while I debated whether I should confront them. Part of me wanted to scream at them, to let them know how deeply they'd hurt me and how absurd their request was. But another part of me knew they wouldn't understand. They never saw me as a person with feelings, just as someone who could fulfill a role they needed. Confronting them wouldn't change anything. They'd twist it around somehow, make it about them, or tell me I was being dramatic. So I've been ignoring the calls, trying to find some peace in the life I've built for myself. But they've been bothering me this whole time. Every few days I'll get another voicemail, another text message, and it drags me back to that place of anger and hurt. They don't see me as a person with my own life and pain. They only see me as a convenience, someone who can patch up their mess. It's been exhausting, and I'm so tired of feeling like I'm the only one who sees how messed up this all is. Honestly, I know I'm not wrong for refusing to go back, but part of me wonders if there's something I'm missing. Should I confront them and try to make them see the damage they've caused? Or should I just block them all and let them deal with the mess they made? I know I've come a long way, but this whole thing has brought up so many old wounds that I thought I'd healed. So Reddit, what am I supposed to do here? Should I even bother trying to explain to them how much they've hurt me, or would it just be a waste of time? I wish I could say things have gotten better, but honestly, the situation has only gone from bad to worse. Ever since I posted, my inbox has been flooded with more messages and calls from my family and Julie's family, and it's been a nightmare trying to keep up with all of it. My phone buzzes with notifications all day, to the point that I'm starting to dread even looking at it. I've tried blocking numbers, but somehow they keep finding ways to reach me. Whether it's through new numbers or emails, it's like they're determined to wear me down. What really took me by surprise was a call from Julie herself. I usually don't pick up calls if I don't recognize the number, but this time I did, thinking it might be work-related or maybe a friend. The minute I heard her voice, my stomach dropped. It was Julie, and she immediately started in on what sounded like a pre-planned speech. She began by saying she was deeply sorry, and that she realized she'd made some terrible mistakes. I could hardly believe the audacity of it all. She talked as if she had just forgotten to pick up milk on her way home, not destroyed our marriage by sleeping with my own brother. She kept going, saying we owed it to each other to work through this and that we had years of history together that shouldn't just be thrown away. Hearing her say that, after everything she'd done, was like a punch in the gut. The nerve to bring up our 8-year marriage as though it was something I was obligated to cherish. She said we both owed each other this chance to reconcile, to pick up the pieces and see if we could find a way back to each other. I almost laughed out loud at the ridiculousness of it. It was as if she thought a few apologies could somehow erase the betrayal, the loneliness, and the utter devastation she'd caused me. She went on, talking about how much she missed the stability we had and how she realized, now that Luke was gone, she truly wanted to settle down. The whole time she kept using words like we and our life and our history, as if she had any right to talk about us anymore. I just sat there completely stunned, and barely managed to say anything because every word she spoke was making me angrier. When I finally interrupted her and asked, "Why now? Why do you care now that he's gone?" She gave me some pathetic excuse about realizing what she'd lost and how she thought I'd be strong enough to move past it and take her back. Strong enough, as if strength had anything to do with putting up with her betrayal. After I hung up on her, the messages from my dad started pouring in even more relentlessly. They actually had the nerve to say that now that I had Julie begging for forgiveness, it was proof she was sorry, and I should see this as some kind of victory, or a sign that I should go back to her. My dad even said, "Isn't it enough that she's asking for a second chance?" It made my blood boil. They were talking as if Julie's pathetic attempt at reconciliation was something I should be grateful for, something that should make me feel validated or worthy. They seemed completely blind to the fact that I was the one who had been wronged, that I was the one who had been tossed aside like nothing. I kept wondering, how could anything be enough? How could a few words erase everything she'd done? Did they really expect me to just jump back into her arms and pretend none of it had happened? Out of sheer frustration, I ended up calling Luke. I had no idea what I was even going to say to him, I just needed to get it out. He didn't pick up, so I left a voicemail telling him that this entire mess was his doing and that he should be the one dealing with it. I reminded him that he had broken apart my marriage and my life, and it was up to him to explain himself to our parents and take responsibility. I was so furious that I ended up sending him an email too, just so he couldn't ignore me. I laid it all out, point by point, reminding him of every betrayal, every instance where he could have chosen to stop what he was doing but didn't. I was angry and hurt, and I didn't hold back. Of course, Luke never responded. Typical. He'd caused this chaos, torn apart two families, and walked away without a second thought. Now he was off with some new woman, probably not even thinking about the destruction he'd left in his wake. He'd left me to deal with the fallout while he got to walk away scot-free. And here I was, fielding calls and emails from family members who still somehow believed I was the one who could fix it all. It's like they couldn't grasp the idea that I wasn't some disposable piece they could just pick up and drop whenever they felt like it. One particularly awful call came from my uncle, who had always been one of the few people I trusted in my family. He was practically begging me to see reason, and told me that people make mistakes and that real forgiveness means giving people another chance. He told me that as a man, it was my duty to be forgiving, to show grace in the face of hardship. I felt so betrayed even by him. It was like he was saying that my pain, my heartache, didn't matter as much as maintaining some false sense of harmony. I was so shaken up that I couldn't even respond. I just hung up and cried. I wish I could just cut them all off, but it's so hard. Despite everything, part of me still feels tied to them, still craves their acceptance or approval. I know it's not healthy, and I know they've shown me who they are, but I can't deny that it hurts. It's like a part of me is still that little boy who just wants his parents to love him unconditionally, even though I know now that they never truly will. That realization is almost as painful as the betrayal itself. So here I am, feeling lost all over again. I thought I'd moved past this, that I'd managed to put the pieces of my life back together, but they keep dragging me back. Part of me wants to confront them, to tell them all exactly what I think of their so-called family values, but another part of me wonders if it's even worth the energy. They've shown me who they are, and I know deep down that no amount of explaining will make them see me for who I am or respect my boundaries. But it's hard to walk away completely when they keep pulling me back. Right now, I'm exhausted, mentally and emotionally. I feel like they're trying to erase everything I've worked for, every bit of peace I fought to find. I know I shouldn't let them get to me, but it's hard, so hard, not to feel like I am the one who's somehow in the wrong, even though I know logically that I'm not. It's been a few weeks since I last tried to wrap my head around everything, and honestly, nothing has settled down. If anything, it feels like someone hit the gas pedal on the drama, and I'm just trying to hold on. The calls, texts, and emails from my family and Julie's family got so bad that I finally decided to cut them all off. I blocked their numbers, emails, and even their social media accounts. It wasn't an easy decision, but I needed some kind of boundary, any boundary, because my head was spinning. For a few days, I actually felt like I'd won a small battle. My phone wasn't lighting up every 5 minutes with another attempt to guilt-trip me, and for the first time in months, I could just exist without their noise in the background. But of course, that peace didn't last long. Nothing about this situation seems to let me breathe for long. A few days after blocking everyone, I came home from work, tired and just wanting to crash, and there he was. My dad, standing outside my apartment like it was the most normal thing in the world. My stomach dropped. I had never told him where I moved after the divorce, so the fact that he somehow tracked me down felt like a huge violation of my privacy. For a second, I thought about pretending I hadn't seen him and just turning around, but I knew that would only delay the inevitable. If I didn't face him now, he'd just keep coming back until I did. The whole thing was so classic Dad, like a masterclass in emotional manipulation. He started talking about how the family was falling apart, that Julie was miserable, and that Luke's absence was a wound no one knew how to deal with. He kept saying how family is everything, as if that meant I had some kind of obligation to fix everything just because we were related. He went on about how it was my duty to put the past behind us because that's what families are supposed to do. He even said Christmas was coming up, and it would be the perfect opportunity to all get together and make things right. I couldn't believe the nerve of it all. This was the same man who stood by while my wife and brother destroyed my life, and now he was asking me to be the one to patch things up. I felt like my head was going to explode. It was so frustrating, but it was also exhausting. I just stood there, trying my best to keep my composure while he went on and on about forgiveness and moving forward. By the time he finally left, I felt like I'd been wrung out like an old rag. It was such a painful reminder of where I stood in my family's priorities, definitely nowhere near the top. That wasn't even the worst of it. Not long after that little ambush, I got an email from Julie. I hadn't heard from her in a while, so when I saw her name pop up in my inbox, it felt like a slap in the face. Her message was short, but it was calculated. She said she understood why I was upset and hoped we could have a conversation to clear the air. Oh, and just to make it worse, she attached a picture of us from our wedding day. That picture used to make me smile, but now it made my stomach turn. I deleted the email without even thinking twice. There was no way I was going to let her back into my head like that, no matter how sorry she claimed to be. And then, just when I thought I'd seen it all, Luke reached out. His email came out of nowhere with the subject line, "I'm sorry." For half a second I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe he's finally going to own up to what he did. But no, his so-called apology was just a pile of excuses. He wrote about how he never meant to hurt me, how his relationship with Julie just happened because they were in love, as if that somehow made it okay. And if that wasn't bad enough, he actually had the audacity to say he hoped Julie and I could get back together. He said he was rooting for us to find happiness again, as if his blessing meant a damn thing to me anymore. I was so angry I could barely see straight. How do you even respond to something like that? Spoiler, you don't. I deleted his email just like I deleted Julie's. There was no point in engaging with someone who was so completely oblivious to the damage they had caused. It felt like they were trying to rewrite history, like nothing had really happened, like their actions had no consequences. But I wasn't about to let them gaslight me like that. These past few weeks have been some of the hardest of my life. The betrayal, the pressure to forgive, the constant manipulation, it's all taken a huge toll on me. Therapy has helped, but sometimes progress feels painfully slow. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when everything around you seems to keep pulling you backward. But I'm trying. If nothing else, this whole mess has taught me how important it is to put myself first, even when everything else is screaming at me to do the opposite. With the holidays coming up, I know things are going to be tough. The whole family togetherness thing feels like it's going to be shoved in my face at every turn. But for the first time, I'm not going to let that dictate my decisions. I've spent too long trying to keep the peace, trying to make everyone else happy at the expense of my own well-being. It's time for me to take control and make choices that are good for me, even if that means upsetting a few people along the way. It's not easy though. There are still days when the guilt creeps in. I think about all the messages I've ignored, all the people I've cut off, and wonder if I'm doing the right thing. But then I remind myself of everything that happened, everything they did, and I know that this is what I need. I'm learning that I don't owe anyone my peace, my happiness, or my mental health. I'm learning that it's okay to walk away from people who don't respect my boundaries no matter who they are. The road ahead is still uncertain, and I know there will be more challenges, especially with the holidays looming, but I'm not going to let the past dictate my future. I honestly didn't think things could get any worse, but I've learned that life's pretty good at surprising you, and not always in a good way. Since my last update, things have taken another turn. It feels like every single person involved has decided that they're not going to back down. Instead of backing off and letting me heal, they've just doubled down on their efforts to guilt trip, manipulate, and pressure me into going back to a situation I've worked so hard to escape. It's like the chaos is never ending, and I'm constantly fighting to keep my peace intact. The first major red flag was a letter I got in the mail from Julie's parents about a week ago. At first I thought maybe this was an attempt at reconciliation, or at least an apology for their part in all of this. But no, the letter was nothing but accusations. They went on about how selfish and immature I was for not forgiving Julie and for not putting the family back together. According to them, my refusal to engage was somehow making everything worse for everyone else, like it was my responsibility to fix a mess that they all contributed to. But the real kicker was at the end of the letter when they threatened to expose me to our mutual friends. They said if I didn't do the right thing and talk to Julie, they'd ruin my reputation and paint me as the villain. Seriously, what exactly were they going to expose? That I set boundaries? That I refused to forgive a woman who cheated on me with my brother? It was infuriating, to say the least, and honestly, it just made it crystal clear that I could not trust these people. I had to protect myself from them no matter what. Then Julie decided to take it to the next level. I was at work one day, minding my own business, when one of my XEO workers came to tell me that someone was waiting for me in the lobby. At first I thought it was just a delivery, or maybe a friend stopping by unexpectedly. But no, when I walked out, there she was, Julie, standing there like some rom-com protagonist, holding a bouquet of flowers. My stomach sank. It was the last thing I needed, and it felt like the entire world had stopped. Why did she think this was okay? It wasn't even just the flowers, it was the fact that she was at my workplace, my safe space, after I told her again and again that I didn't want her in my life. She completely disregarded the boundaries I had set, acting like a bouquet could somehow fix everything she destroyed. And it wasn't just awkward for me, it was embarrassing. My coworkers were watching, and I could feel their eyes on me, making this whole ridiculous scene worse. Julie, of course, didn't seem to care. She kept blabbering on about how sorry she was and how much she missed me, as though all that mattered was her feelings. She said we were meant to be together, as if me standing there, heart in pieces, didn't prove the opposite. It felt like she was rewriting the story in her favor, playing the part of the heartbroken hero when really, she was the one who caused all of this. It was selfish, and honestly, it felt like she was trying to gaslight me into feeling bad for her, instead of taking responsibility for her actions. I was so angry, but I had to stay calm. I told her she needed to leave immediately, that this wasn't the place for her apology. She ignored me, so I walked back to my office, shaking with frustration. I locked myself inside, trying to regain my composure. I called security to remove her. I didn't want to escalate things, but at that point, it was clear I had no other choice. I had to protect myself again. Later that night, I made a decision I never thought I would have to make. I filed for a restraining order against Julie. The idea of doing this, of having to get legal protection from someone I once loved, was heartbreaking, but I knew it was the only way to keep her out of my life for good. I couldn't just sit around and let her keep showing up, invading my space and making me feel powerless. I had to take control. My family hasn't stopped either, even though I've gone no contact with them. They found new ways to try and reach me. One of my cousins, someone I haven't spoken to in years, sent me this long message about forgiveness and how everyone missed me. Of course, she didn't mention the fact that none of them cared about me when I was in the middle of dealing with the betrayal. Another distant uncle chimed in with an email about how I needed to be the bigger person and let go of my anger. It's crazy to me that these people, who weren't even involved in the betrayal, feel like they have the right to tell me how to heal. They have no idea what I've been through. But the hardest part, the part that's been the most painful, is my dad. Despite everything, despite our last confrontation where I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with this mess, he's still trying to guilt me into coming back. A few days ago, he left me a voicemail saying I was tearing the family apart by refusing to forgive Julie and Luke. He didn't even acknowledge the pain they caused me. All he cared about was how my actions were affecting them. It's hard not to feel drained by all of this. Every time I think I'm getting some distance from the chaos, someone finds a new way to drag me back in. But through all of it, I've come to realize something important. I deserve better. I deserve better than Julie, better than the toxic dynamics in my family, and better than the life they tried to force me into. I've moved into a new apartment that they don't know about. I've locked down my privacy even more. New phone number, tighter security on my accounts. It's sad that I've had to go to these lengths, but it's necessary for my peace of mind. Therapy has been my lifeline. My therapist has helped me understand that it's okay to protect myself, that cutting off toxic people isn't just acceptable, it's essential. Progress is slow, and some days it feels like I'm barely hanging on, but for the first time in a long time, I'm putting myself first, and that's something I've never done before.